Fantastic. So let me just probably introduce who you are. So Anke, you're the head of HELLA Corporate Sustainability Office, and Remy, you are Forvia Group Sustainable Materials from the Division Sustainable Transformation Vice President. That's correct. Right, it's great to have you both. So to start this day, the Sustainability Day, so let's probably go right at the beginning of this roadmap, Remy. So if we look a little back, where this roadmap actually comes from, so can you tell our guests, when did you start working on it, and how did this journey about net zero start?
Okay, thank you. It started actually not out of the blue. It was part of our DNA, as Patrick explained, our convictions, which have to do with the next generations, which have to do with the planet, which have to do with diversity. And it was 2018 where it was published. And 2019, Patrick Koller came and said, we need to become CO2 neutral as a company. So, okay, we took it as a target, and we started working on it, how to achieve it in practice, what are the levers, what are the actions which we need. And we gathered experts, we gathered people from within the company, and we identified a first roadmap with an ambition of becoming minus 45% by 2030 as for Asia. And we got it validated by SBTi at that time as compatible with a 1.5 degree global warming, which was at that time the most ambitious target available for companies. Then came HELLA. So as Patrick said, so we recognized that we had the same value and we shared the same vision. So therefore, knowing that there was a new standard, even more ambitious, to go for net zero for companies, published in October 21, we looked at it and we said, this is where we need to go. So we worked together with the teams to identify the final levels which we will need to reach the final net zero. We identified it should be 2045, and this is what we published and got approved in June this year, together. As a Forvia roadmap towards net zero. So we are proud to say that we are the first and only today automotive company to be recognized as compliant with the net zero roadmap.
All right, so HELLA, the HELLA perspective, obviously. So can you tell us about the climate targets? You're working together, you have the same values, we've heard that.
Yeah, that's true. So we came very quickly to the conclusion that we want to work in the same direction when it comes to climate change and our commitment to fight climate change. We set our joint Forvia target, and it means for us that basically by 2045 we need to reduce our CO2 emission by 90%. With the remaining 10% being captured from the atmosphere. For instance, think about sequestrating CO2 in bio-sourced plastics. And as Remy said, the certification by SBTi has been a really big step for Forvia, because independent experts reviewed scientifically our plans and targets, and they confirmed that the targets are ambitious, yes, but even still realistic, so which was the important thing for us. And we all know that it is now the time to act on limiting global warming. Our climate targets, we are very sure about this. They underline that we at Forvia embrace this challenge, and we really want to contribute our share to the fight against the climate crisis.
Oh, thank you, Anke. And we're going to continue this conversation, but first, just to set the scene, let's watch this trailer first and we'll get back to it.
All of us at Forvia want to protect the planet. So we're putting CO2 neutrality at the heart of our strategy. Today, we emit 40 million tons of CO2 a year, as much as 4 million French people. Only 3% of that comes from our factories. The rest originates up and down our value chain. We've made a bold commitment, approved by the Science Based Targets Initiative, to be net zero from 2045, a first in the automotive industry. We're now on this ambitious journey with 2 intermediate steps: CO2 neutrality by 2025 for our Scope 1 and 2 emissions. Scope 1 is all our direct emissions, the emissions from the combustion of fuel and gas on our sites. Scope 2 is all our indirect emissions, the emissions from the electricity we purchase. By 2030, 45% reduction in our Scope 3 emissions, meaning all other indirect emissions in our value chain, upstream and downstream. Example, transport, purchased goods and services, processing of sold products, etc., including car usage. We are already combining business growth with environmental care, using less, better, longer, with a focus on recyclability and circular economy. Our progress is real. We are rethinking the way we produce through energy savings, using decarbonized energy in partnership with major players, installing solar panels in our plants, and financing wind farms in Sweden, and rethinking our products, pioneering sustainable materials. Recycled or bio-based plastics, decarbonized steel, pioneering hydrogen and electric technologies to help our industry move towards zero emission. This is a collective journey, mobilizing our suppliers, customers, partners, and all our teams. We are ready to lead this transformation.
Well, Remy, I think the images speak for themselves, and we understand that CO2 neutrality is really at the heart of Forvia's strategy. So I think it was important for you today to have a special guest who is actually has a very important role in this new framework. So I'll leave it up to you to introduce him.
Okay, we are very proud, honored, and happy to welcome on stage Jean-Bernard Lévy, who is, as you know, CEO of EDF, and very, very committed on environment. So Jean-Bernard, thanks a lot. You come with us.
You have a microphone. Thank you. Welcome, Jean-Bernard Lévy, and thank you for being with us. So Remy just said, so you are the board member and chairman of Forester's Governance, Nomination, Sustainability Committee. So Forvia we just heard, is the first automotive company with a net zero target, which is approved by the SBTi initiative. So this is something very important to understand for you.
Yes, certainly. And first, let me say good morning to all of you. And say I'm very happy to be here in my capacity as a chairman of one of the committees of the board of Forvia, and I think it's quite important that at the same time I run an energy company, and so we are very familiar with all those climate matters because it's at the heart of our mission. I think having a responsibility at board level on sustainability is something that is clearly essential, I believe, for Forvia's own mission, as Patrick said, related to all its stakeholders, and this is something I would like to share with you this morning. Obviously, now, if I go back to your question about SBTi, I think science-based targets speaks by itself. It says we need to base the fight against global warming based on science. And Forvia, a company of engineers, obviously, has to base its own path towards net zero 2045 and towards neutrality, scope 1 and 2, in just a few years, based on science, and having SBTi, a very well-known, very renowned organization, deliver its first net zero approval of a strategy, and not only of the strategy, but you say you need to go through the numbers, you need to do all kinds of simulations and so on. It's not just, stating something which maybe other people will be in charge of in 20 years. it's something that is really related to clear action plans all through the company, I think this is very, very important reward for Forvia's vision into what will be our future in a very difficult environment where we really had to get global warming under control. So having this SBTi recognition, I think, is a fantastic recognition. And at the same time, it is a huge challenge that I'm happy to share with you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jean-Bernard. And the transition is great. It's a huge challenge indeed, Remy. So what's your plan to make it happen?
Okay, so to go on a roadmap, you need to have some milestones, okay, to make it happen step by step. So therefore, we identified that, of course, Scope 1 and 2 is what we do in-house. So this is something which we are the only one to work on. So this is our first priority. So it is what is happening in our plants. So 2025, the target is to become CO2 neutral. The commitment to SBTi is minus 80% minimum. The second step is about what is happening upstream and downstream our plants. So very much which has to do with our products. So all our products will need to be changed. That's a massive turnaround of what we do. So they will be changed in terms of how they are designed, how they are produced, how they are transported, how they are used. So that we are working hard on that. We believe we understand the levers to pull. And we have this very ambitious target of minus 45. Minus 45 2030 is tomorrow, because the products, we start designing the cars which are going to be on the road in 2030. And then the eventual 2045, we know that there are additional levers. There are some technology gaps yet to bridge, that we know. But we are confident we can make it. We are lucky enough also to have an industry which can manage the heat and the energy in a reasonable way. And we are lucky enough also to have the capacity to sequestrate CO2 through the biomass, through our materials, through the plastics. And Materiact is the company within Forvia which is going to make it happen.
Thank you, Remy. And Anke, I would like to refer back to the trailer. Use less, use better, use longer. So how does that translate into your strategy? Can you explain?
Yeah, sure. So use less, use better, and use longer are basically our key levers that will help us to achieve the reduction of CO2 emissions in our own operations, but also in our upstream and downstream supply chain. If we look maybe at Scope 1 and 2 first, what does it mean? Using less very clearly means reducing the energy intensity and the CO2 intensity of all our business operations. Think about using less electricity in our plants, using less gas in our production processes, electrifying heating. These are examples in that area. Using better means to operate as much as possible on renewable energies, in particular when we think about electricity on wind and solar. And we are doing those kind of things with important strategic partners, which you will hear more about during the day. If we look at Scope 3, the meaning of those terms is even a little bit more wider, yeah? Because use less here means not only that we use less energy in the supply chain, but also that we design our products and supply chains in such a way that we can use, for instance, less materials in our products, that we can use less transportation. Using better means that if we have to use certain resources, that we use the best available options in terms of a CO2 efficient footprint. Think about materials with a low or even negative carbon footprint, or switching to transportation modes with low emissions in that topic. And use longer at the end is evolving into a circular economy, into design for repair, and enabling, let's say, multiple lives of our products and the materials that we use in those products. All those levers will need to go into our technology and into our business model, and we will hear about it also later today during the day.
Yes, absolutely. And this is the huge turnaround, Remy, you were talking about. Jean-Bernard Lévy, I would like to have your view on this ambitious plan. Any comments?
It is ambitious, indeed, and it is something that needs to be implemented with a lot of speed. As Remy said, as you explained, lots of things can happen in the short term, and all the product definition for the 2025 and 2030 products is now. So I think the ambition has to be concrete as soon as possible, and I've seen several statements made by Hella, made by Forvia about what is happening on the field, in the units, and so on, in the various businesses all through the world, because obviously Forvia is a very global company. So I think the ambition to me is sustainable in both meanings of the word, and it has to be speedy, and it has to go through the whole levels of the company. And I think one of the most important things in this ambition is to make sure there is a full awareness, and that there is and Patrick mentioned this, that there is a full solidarity, and that there is a full consistency between these objectives and maybe the economic objectives within the group.
Right, and I know that Forvia is also working to make the climate topic become central across the organization. This is what Patrick mentioned earlier, and we spoke about that. So what does this mean in terms of governance, Remy?
Okay, so at the top of the company, we have the governance of the board of directors. And for instance, there are 3 committees working in details about what we do. You have the remuneration committee, and the remuneration committee has decided that for all the managers which are eligible within Forvia, and it is in the kind of similar way with Hella, have part of their short-term incentive, which is made of CO2 roadmap on scope 1 and 2. You have the audit committee taking care of the risks, and climate change is a big risk, and therefore it is addressed also by this committee. And we have, last but not least, definitely the sustainability committee chaired by Jean-Bernard Lévy, who is definitely challenging, assessing, supporting our strategy from day one. And so we are working definitely very much together to make sure that we converge at the right speed on a realistic way on the CO2 neutrality.
And of course, Jean-Bernard Lévy, I have to ask you this question. I would like to have your views on the role of governance, and tell us about the missions of this committee.
What I would like to maybe spend a couple of minutes on is how I feel that sustainability and governance are well aligned and should be aligned. And I think it's great that at Forvia's board level, governance and sustainability are topics that are discussed, sort of supervised at board level, of course, in the same committee. Because, of course, the Governance and Nominations Committee, well, usually it will deal with matters such as how does the board operate? Is the board operating according to code of conduct that it has decided to adopt? How are the nominations prepared? And so on. So that's what it is. But then when you add the sustainability factor into these usual governance matters, and of course the relationship between the board and the top management of the company, the operations of the company, the way the other committees work and so on. When you add sustainability to all this, then and in other companies you may have a sustainability committee apart from the governance committee. But I think having sustainability and governance work together means that there is a full flow of sustainability matters within the way that the company is governed. So that, yes, indeed, you ensure that some of the remuneration is paid according to achievement or not of sustainability goals. You may ensure that when looking at the risks, the audit committee will look at the sustainability goals. But in terms of governance, I think it's sort of at the heart of the company. It is what makes the company's social mission, bringing together all the efforts of all the various stakeholders, and having together sustainability and governance means that really, and I think I am very much personally in favor of that really sustainability becomes a very important matter, not on the side, but at the heart of what the company is there for, is of the mission, of the long-term vision of the company. So I think from my perspective, and I'm living it now for about 18 months, a bit more, at Forvia, it's very important that we manage that together, and especially as the company's mission is in the mobility area, and we know that mobility, generally speaking, transportation is 30–40% of carbon emissions in all the major areas of the planet.
Now, so I hear you. So this, it's central for the group, but also for the committee, you said that. But now, how do you assess and review the environmental responsibility of the group? How do we measure that? Sorry, tricky question.
Yeah, well, I will make a short answer. I think we measure it through a variety of reports, and maybe at one point in time, we need to make sure that we really focus on what is important in terms of sustainability. I think we all know that mankind has some from time to time, there is a risk that there is a bit of bureaucracy. So my vision is more that we really need to focus on the end solution of the global purpose regarding climate and biodiversity, I would say, which are today the major sustainability areas. There are also other sustainability areas, such as gender diversity, for instance, which are maybe more in the human relations area. But I think, at least from my perspective, biodiversity and climate, we should really look at these as top priorities at this stage, not the only ones, but the top priorities, and make sure that we focus and we help the company's management focus on some key performance indicators that can be understood worldwide through tens of thousands of people, that they really feel they are part of the solution to the planet's problems.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Anke, maybe a few words on that. You have some KPIs and some reporting to assess and measure.
Yeah, maybe just a brief insight in HELA on this topic. So at HELA, the sustainability strategies, the roadmaps, initiatives, and also the reporting are governed very much through the HELA corporate governance, with the management board, the shareholders committee, and the supervisory board as the main corporate governance bodies. Within this framework, we discuss very intensively how we can integrate sustainability in the different business processes and, let's say, the daily activities of the HELA employees. One example, and Remy mentioned it, is that also our management board is incentivized through sustainability KPIs. So we already have this element today in the short-term variable compensation, and we will have it also in future for the long-term variable remuneration. It's planned. So this is, as explained, a very important step to start really at the top to integrate the targets and to have them cascaded through the organization.
And Remy, I think the challenge is not just to align it within the group and the company itself, it's also outside of the company, the suppliers, the customers. That's the challenge.
Indeed, we need to be all aligned first internally. So you have understood from the top of the company, there is this vision and this great attention to what all we do. Within the company, we have these scope 1 and 2 target for everyone, starting from the plants and consolidated to the level of the group. So everybody is on board on scope 1 and 2, I can tell you. And for scope 3, which is a little bit more difficult topic because it is about our products. So how do we do? I mean, it's very simple. We calculate the CO2 footprint of the products we develop, and we attach a price of CO2 as a reference for the people to make the right decision. And the internal price of CO2 is 75 euros. And we have all the tools for the people to really understand what they do. We have devised an internal database on emission factor. Almost 2,000 values have been checked and calculated by our experts to make sure that we all calculate the same way and speak the same language. Now, we also need, of course, to have the suppliers with us, and we have different tools to communicate with them. We have platforms to calculate their own footprint or for them to declare their footprint. We have also looking at their roadmap, so we have engaged the CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project initiative with our main suppliers for them to explain their roadmap and for us to challenge them. And of course, I should have maybe started with them, without our customers. I mean, our customers are, very much in the same journey than us. We are very much discussing with them, exchanging with them to make sure that we are exactly doing the right things as concerns our products, which need all to become sustainable.
Fantastic. And I know, Anke, there's also the sustainability ecosystem. Brief word about that. So you work in collaboration, yeah?
Yeah, so you just heard customers and suppliers are at the heart of the ecosystem together with us, but that's not where it stops. So we need to have strong partners, global partners, which are leading in their fields of expertise, and you will see some of those partners also today on stage, which will help us to get our roadmaps into realization. And beyond that, we also engage very intensively in industry-wide activities and exchange of best practices. For instance, think about the business associations, VDA in Germany, for instance, for HELA, or also on a European level, the CLEPA. These are very important forums for us also to learn from our industry partners and also to share our experiences.
Jean-Bernard Lévy, how can Forvia take the lead, in transforming the industry? Do you have any tips, advice, recommendation that you can share?
Well, I think Forvia has taken the lead. The SBTi recognition, and SBTi is really a top-level, very demanding organization. I think now executing the plan, and Remy, Anke, you are very explicit in what it takes to execute the plan, is a huge challenge. And I think it needs to bring together all the stakeholders, starting with all the talents within the company. And I think one of the key challenges that you have to manage is really bringing together the talents, which maybe for some of them are not so much aware of the importance of this for Forvia, but also for Forvia's own clients and for the end users of the products in the automobile industry. I think at this stage, Scope 1 and 2 is more in our hands. Scope 3 obviously needs a huge transition within our environment, generally speaking. I think it's achieving the 2025 target, very short term, will really demonstrate Forvia's leadership in this area, already ahead of its competitors. And I am extremely confident from what I see, from the discussions we have, from what I see today of what's been prepared, this Sustainability Day. I'm very, very confident that Forvia can keep that leadership and be ahead of its competitors regarding its ability to achieve these goals in this very demanding transition, also obviously in the powering of the vehicles.
Thank you, Jean-Bernard Lévy. We have 2 minutes left. Maybe one quick question that's for Anke and Remy about, I know about your factories, you're planning in less than 3 years for them to be CO2 neutral. So probably, I know there are challenges on the way. Just a quick word about that. How are you planning to achieve that?
Anyway, so there will be some very specific explanations and discussion later, so I don't want to spoil. So please wait a few minutes, we will have full explanations for both Scope 1 and 2 and Scope 3.
All right. Anke?
Yeah, maybe just a last comment to that. I think when we think about the implementation, what we now need to take care of is that we really mobilize the whole Forvia work group. Let's say you have seen we are 150,000 people worldwide, and we are all in this together, and we need to equip everybody with the resources and means to really contribute and make sustainability an integral part of their work.
So, Remy, I give you a final word just to close.
I give the final word to Jean-Bernard.
Well, okay. I find these goals, the plan, the execution of the plan, ambitious and inspiring. And I think from what I see, at Forvia we have all it takes to get it done, to show that not only we have leadership today because of the ability to set these ambitious goals, but we will have leadership just in a few years because we will have demonstrated we can execute something which many people would have said is not achievable in our industry. So I really want to congratulate all those who've been working on this, obviously starting with Patrick and the top management of the company, and say I feel myself very inspired by what I see at Forvia, Faurecia, Hella.
Fantastic. Thank you to all three of you. This will be the final words. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Jean-Ben Alavi, Anke, and Remy. Thank you so much.